My wife called my 45 years romance ridiculous before CO workers. I cut off affection, won divorce, and reclaimed my house, dignity, and peace. I had spent the entire day setting up what I thought would be a perfect romantic evening. Candles throughout the house, her favorite wine chilling, dinner from that expensive Italian place she always mentioned. I even got those roses she used to love back when she actually smiled at gestures like that. She walked through the door after work, took one look at the setup, and her face twisted into something between disgust and embarrassment. But here's the thing that really gets me. She wasn't alone. Two of her work friends had followed her in, probably expecting to grab something quick before heading out for drinks. "Oh God, what is all this?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The way she said it, you'd think I had decorated the place with garbage, instead of trying to create something beautiful for us. "It's our anniversary," I replied, still holding on to some hope that maybe she'd remember what today meant. That's when she dropped the bomb that would echo in my head for weeks. "You're 45 years old. Stop trying to be romantic. It's ridiculous." She turned to her friends, rolling her eyes like I was some pathetic old man playing dress-up. "Can you believe this? Like we're teenagers or something." Her friends laughed. Actually laughed. Not the uncomfortable kind of laugh you give when someone says something awkward, but genuine amusement at my expense. One of them even said, "At least he's trying," which somehow made it worse because it sounded like pity. I stood there, surrounded by candles and flowers, holding a wine glass that suddenly felt like evidence of my own foolishness. 45 and ridiculous. Those words hit me like a physical blow, but not in the way you might think. Instead of crushing me, they did something else entirely. They woke me up. "You know what?" I said, setting the wine down carefully on the counter. "You're absolutely right." She looked surprised, probably expecting me to argue or apologize or beg her to appreciate the effort. Instead, I started blowing out the candles one by one, very deliberately. "I am 45, I continued, moving through the room with purpose, and apparently, romance is ridiculous at my age. I collected the roses, walked straight to the trash can, and dropped them in. So I'll stop." The room went quiet except for the sound of me clearing everything away. Her friends shifted uncomfortably, probably sensing they had witnessed something they shouldn't have. My wife just stood there, watching me dismantle what I had built. "Don't be dramatic," she said. But there was something in her voice now, uncertainty creeping in. "Dramatic?" I turned to face her, and I could see something in my expression made her take a half step back. "No, this is me accepting reality. You've made it very clear how you feel about my efforts to keep romance alive in our marriage." I picked up the expensive bottle of wine, the one I had been saving for a special occasion, and held it up to the light. This cost more than most people spend on groceries in a week. "I bought it because I thought tonight mattered to you." Then I did something that surprised even me. I opened it right there and poured myself a glass, completely ignoring her and her friends. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Enjoying good wine," I replied, taking a sip. Since romance is off the table, I might as well appreciate quality when I see it. Her friends were looking at each other now, clearly uncomfortable with the tension they had helped create. One of them mumbled something about needing to leave, and they both hurried toward the door. After they left, she tried a different approach. "Look, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. It's just we're not kids anymore. This stuff feels forced." I finished my wine, rinsed the glass, and put it away. "You didn't hurt my feelings," I told her. "And I meant it. You clarified something important. I've been wasting my time trying to be something you find ridiculous. That's not what I said." "That's exactly what you said in front of your friends on our anniversary." I looked at her directly. No anger in my voice, just cold facts. "But thank you for the honesty. It saves us both a lot of trouble moving forward." She opened her mouth to respond, but I was already walking toward the stairs. "I'm going to bed. Early morning tomorrow." As I climbed the stairs, I could hear her moving around downstairs, probably trying to process what had just happened. She expected me to sulk, to pout, maybe to try harder next time. What she didn't realize was that there wouldn't be a next time. Not for romance, not for special efforts, not for treating her like someone who deserved the best I had to offer. Lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Clarity. For the first time in a long time, I knew exactly where I stood, and exactly what I needed to do about it. She had spent years slowly eroding my confidence, making me feel like my efforts were embarrassing, like wanting to keep the spark alive made me pathetic. But here's what hit me as I lay there in the dark. I wasn't pathetic for wanting romance. I was pathetic for trying to give it to someone who not only didn't want it, but actively mocked me for offering it. Tomorrow, things would be different. Not because I was angry or trying to punish her, but because I finally understood something crucial. I had been trying to water a dead plant for years, wondering why it wouldn't bloom. The problem wasn't my water or my care or my timing. The plant was already dead. The next morning, she expected the usual routine. You know, the one where I'd bring her coffee in bed, maybe apologize for being too much the night before, or suggest we talk about what happened. Instead, she woke up to silence and an empty coffee pot. I was already dressed and ready for work when she stumbled into the kitchen, looking confused. "Where's my coffee?" she asked, like it was some law of nature that I'd violated. "Coffee is in the cabinet," I replied without looking up from my phone. "Water's in the tap." She stared at me for a full 10 seconds. "Are you seriously going to act like a child over last night?" "Acting like a child would be throwing a tantrum or giving you the silent treatment," I said, finally meeting her eyes. "I'm acting like a 45-year-old man who listened to his wife's feedback and adjusted accordingly." That was the beginning of what I now call my strategic withdrawal. Not dramatic, not emotional, just practical. She had made it clear that romantic gestures were ridiculous, so I stopped all of them. No more surprise flowers, no more special dinners, no more thoughtful gifts. But here's what she didn't expect. I also stopped asking for her approval, her opinion, or her company. By the end of the first week, she was getting annoyed. "You're being weird," she said one evening as I headed out the door. "Where are you going?" she demanded. "Gym," I answered, which was true. I had joined that morning and planned to go every day after work. "Since when do you go to the gym?" "Since today." I decided to invest my energy in things that appreciate the effort. She didn't like that answer, but what could she say? She had spent months complaining about everything from my appearance to my habits. Now, I was fixing both, just not for her benefit. 3 weeks in, the changes were becoming obvious. I had lost weight, gained muscle, and started dressing better. Not because I was trying to impress anyone, but because I realized I had let myself go while focusing all my energy on someone who didn't value it. She tried a different approach one evening. "I've been thinking about what I said on our anniversary. Maybe I was too harsh." "Maybe you were honest," I replied, not even pausing my workout routine in the living room. "I appreciate honesty. It helps me make better decisions." "What's that supposed to mean?" I finished my set and looked at her directly. "It means I'm no longer wasting time on things you find ridiculous, including trying to fix whatever this has become." "What are you talking about? You're my husband." "On paper," I said, wiping off the sweat. "But marriage is supposed to be a partnership, not a charity case where one person constantly mocks the other's efforts." That hit home. I could see it in her face. She wanted to argue. But how do you argue with someone who's simply taking you at your word? The 4th week brought the real test. She started dressing up more, wearing perfume, even suggesting we go out for dinner. "Like old times," she said with a smile that felt forced. "Old times?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean when you found my romantic efforts ridiculous?" "No thanks. I'd rather not embarrass myself again." "Come on, don't be like this." I said I was sorry. "Actually, you didn't. You said maybe you were too harsh. There's a difference." I grabbed my keys. "I'm meeting some people from the gym for drinks. Don't wait up." The look on her face was priceless. This was completely outside her playbook. She was used to me chasing, pleading, trying harder when she pushed back. Instead, I had simply accepted her judgment and moved on. During this time, I wasn't just working on my physical transformation. I had quietly scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney just to understand my options. I wasn't planning anything dramatic, but I needed to know where I stood financially and legally. The lawyer was straightforward. "Document everything," he advised, "especially any patterns of emotional abuse or public humiliation. Courts pay attention to that." So I started keeping records, not obsessively, just factually, dates, times, witnesses, when she made cutting remarks or dismissed my efforts. I recorded the anniversary incident, including the names of her friends who were present. Cold, clinical documentation of a marriage that had died years ago, but I had been too stubborn to pronounce it dead. By the 6th week, she was getting desperate. She started leaving romantic notes around the house, the kind of gestures she had mocked when I did them. I found one on my coffee cup that read, "Miss you." Let's talk tonight. I left it on the counter and went to work. That evening, she cornered me in the garage as I was coming back from another gym session. We need to talk. About what? About us. About this distance you're creating. I leaned against my car, genuinely curious. Distance. I thought this was what you wanted. No more ridiculous romantic gestures from your 45-year-old husband. That's not what I meant, and you know it. Actually, I don't know it. You were pretty clear. You said it in front of witnesses on our anniversary. I'm just giving you exactly what you asked for. She tried to touch my arm, but I stepped away. Not aggressively, just casually, like you'd avoid a stranger's unwanted touch. Don't touch me like that, I said calmly. Romance is ridiculous, remember? That includes intimate gestures between spouses. The color drained from her face. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You trained me well. I learned that my affection is embarrassing. My efforts are pathetic, and my age makes romantic feelings inappropriate. Message received. That night, she cried. I could hear her through the bedroom door. 6 months ago, that sound would have broken me, would have sent me running to comfort her and apologize for whatever I had done wrong. Instead, I put on my headphones and planned my workout for the next day. The woman who had mocked my romantic nature was discovering what life looked like when that nature was withdrawn completely. And frankly, I was discovering something too. I had more energy, more confidence, and more self-respect when I stopped trying to love someone who found love itself ridiculous. The transformation wasn't just physical anymore, it was complete. By the 8th week, she decided to escalate. If I wasn't going to chase her anymore, she'd make me jealous instead. Classic manipulation playbook, except she was dealing with a completely different man than the one she married. It started with little comments about male co-workers. James from accounting complimented my dress today, she'd say, watching my face for a reaction. When I just nodded and continued reading, she tried harder. He asked if I wanted to grab lunch sometime. Sounds nice, I replied without looking up. You should go. That wasn't the response she expected. She wanted anger, possessiveness, maybe a demand that she stop seeing other men. Instead, I was genuinely encouraging her to pursue other options. Why? Because I had already checked out emotionally, and her finding someone else would make my exit cleaner. The next week, she ramped it up. She started staying out late, claiming work events and office parties. One Friday, she came home at 2 a.m., stumbling slightly and reeking of alcohol and cologne that definitely wasn't mine. Where have you been? I asked, not because I cared, but because I was documenting everything. Out with friends, she slurred, clearly hoping I'd interrogate her about which friends and what they did. Okay, I said, making a mental note of the time and her condition. I'm going to bed. She actually looked disappointed by my lack of drama. That's it? You're not going to ask me anything else? Like what? Like who I was with or what I was doing. I considered this for a moment. Honestly, no. Your social life stopped being my concern when you made it clear that being married to me was embarrassing for you. The confusion on her face was almost comical. She had expected jealousy, accusations, maybe even a fight that would give her ammunition to play the victim. Instead, she got indifference, which is far more devastating than anger. Meanwhile, my own transformation was attracting attention. The gym had introduced me to a whole new social circle, and I was rediscovering parts of myself that had been buried under years of trying to please someone who couldn't be pleased. That's when I met her. Not my wife. The other her. The one who would change everything. Her name doesn't matter for this story, but what matters is how she reacted when I held the door for her at the coffee shop near my gym. Instead of rolling her eyes or making some comment about outdated chivalry, she smiled and said, "Thank you. That's sweet." When was the last time someone had called my actions sweet instead of ridiculous? We started talking, just casual conversation, but there was something electric about it. She was younger, maybe 38, divorced herself, and when I mentioned I was married, she didn't immediately back away. Married, but not happy? She asked with a knowing look. Married, but apparently ridiculous, I replied, which made her laugh. Romance is ridiculous? Who told you that? My wife. Repeatedly. She shook her head. Your wife is an idiot. That conversation lasted 2 hours. When I got home, my wife was waiting with a suspicious look. You're late. Had coffee with someone after the gym. Someone? Oh, woman? I met a woman. We talked. I said it deliberately, matter-of-factly, the same way she had been telling me about her male co-workers and late nights out. Her reaction was immediate and explosive. Excuse me? You had coffee with another woman? Yes. Is that a problem? You've been encouraging me to have a social life. That's completely different. How so? She sputtered for a moment, trying to find the logic in her double standard. Because you're married. So are you, I pointed out. Yet, you've been staying out until 2 a.m. with male co-workers telling me about compliments and lunch invitations. I assumed we were both exploring our options. The look of pure panic on her face told me everything I needed to know. She had been playing games, testing boundaries, trying to make me jealous while assuming I'd remain faithful and devoted no matter how she treated me. That's not what I was doing, she said weakly. Really? Because it sounds exactly like what I just did. The only difference is that the woman I met actually appreciates conversation with a 45-year-old man, instead of finding it ridiculous. Over the next few days, my wife's behavior became increasingly erratic. She started checking my phone, asking detailed questions about my whereabouts, and making passive-aggressive comments about faithfulness and commitment. The irony was thick enough to cut with a knife. Funny how faithfulness became important to you. The moment I started getting attention elsewhere, I observed one morning. I never cheated on you. Neither did I. I had coffee and conversation. The same thing you've been doing with your male co-workers, except somehow when I do it, it's betrayal. She tried a different approach. Can't we just start over? Forget everything that happened and try again. Start over? I laughed, genuinely amused. You want to start over with the same man whose romantic gestures embarrass you? The one who's ridiculous for trying to keep passion alive at 45? I didn't mean those things. You meant them enough to say them in front of witnesses. You meant them enough to mock me on our anniversary. You meant them enough to spend 2 months telling your co-workers how pathetic your husband's romantic efforts were. Her face went white. How do you know about that? Because I pay attention now. Because I listen to what people say about me instead of making excuses for them. That evening, I met the coffee shop woman again, this time for dinner. And here's the thing that amazed me. She was fascinated by the fact that I had planned romantic evenings for my wife. She called it incredibly thoughtful and exactly the kind of effort most women dream about. Your wife doesn't know how lucky she is, she said over dessert. Was, I corrected. How lucky she was. When I got home that night, my wife was waiting in the living room with divorce papers printed from the internet. If you want out so badly, here, she said, throwing them at me. Sign them. I picked up the papers, glanced through them quickly, and then did something that shocked her completely. I laughed. You think this is funny? She demanded. I think it's perfect, I said, setting the papers aside. You're giving me exactly what I want, and you think it's a punishment. The realization hit her like a freight train. She had expected me to panic, to beg her not to leave, to promise I'd change. Instead, she had just handed me my freedom on a silver platter, and I was going to take it. The next morning, she tried to take back the divorce papers. I was upset, she said, attempting to grab them from the kitchen counter where I had left them. I didn't mean it. Too late, I replied, moving the papers out of her reach. I've already called my attorney. He's reviewing them today. The panic in her eyes was immediate and complete. You can't be serious over some stupid coffee dates. This isn't about coffee dates. This is about 15 years of being told that my love was embarrassing, my efforts were pathetic, and my age made romance ridiculous. You handed me the solution, and I'm taking it. What she didn't know was that I had already been in contact with my lawyer for weeks. The divorce papers she had printed in anger were amateur hour compared to what my attorney was preparing. But I let her think her impulsive move had triggered everything. That week, I stopped hiding my new social life entirely. When she asked where I was going, I told her, dinner with someone who appreciates my company. When she demanded details, I gave them. Her name is irrelevant. What matters is that she thinks 45-year-old men can be romantic without being ridiculous. You're flaunting this affair in my face. It's not an affair. We're getting divorced. Remember, you initiated it. I'm simply moving forward with my life. The woman I had been seeing was everything my wife wasn't. She was grateful for small gestures, excited about thoughtful planning, and genuinely enjoyed romantic conversation. When I brought her flowers, she didn't roll her eyes. She put them in water and thanked me with a kiss that reminded me what appreciation felt like. You planned the most amazing dates, she told me, after I had arranged a sunset dinner at a restaurant overlooking the harbor. Your wife must have loved this kind of treatment. My wife found this kind of treatment ridiculous, I replied. She preferred I act my age and stop embarrassing her with romantic gestures. She looked genuinely shocked. Are you serious? This is exactly what romance should be. Thoughtful, intentional, sophisticated, not ridiculous at all. Meanwhile, at home, my wife was spiraling. She had started cooking elaborate dinners, leaving love notes, even buying me gifts. All the romantic gestures she had mocked when I did them. She was now desperately trying to use them to win me back. "I made your favorite," she said one evening, presenting a meal that looked like it came from a magazine. "That's nice," I said, making myself a sandwich instead. "I already ate." "You already ate? Where?" "At a restaurant. With someone who doesn't find dinner dates ridiculous." She slammed the pot down so hard it cracked. "Stop throwing that in my face." "I'm not throwing anything. I'm living my life according to the standards you set. No romance, no special efforts, no embarrassing displays of affection. You trained me well." "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant. And now you're upset because I learned the lesson." The breaking point came when she saw us together. I had taken my new companion to the same restaurant where my wife and I used to celebrate anniversaries, back when I still bothered with celebrations. We were having dinner at what used to be our table when my wife walked in with some friends. The look on her face when she saw us was pure devastation. Here I was, doing exactly what she had called ridiculous with someone who was clearly loving every minute of it. My companion was laughing at something I had said, touching my hand across the table, looking at me like I was the most interesting man in the world. Everything my wife had rejected, another woman was treasuring. She marched over to our table, her friends trailing behind with embarrassed expressions. "How dare you bring her here?" "This is a public restaurant," I replied calmly, not even standing up. "You don't own it. This was our place," was being the operative term. "You made it very clear that romantic dinners with me were embarrassing." "I found someone who disagrees." My companion looked between us with understanding dawning on her face. "You must be the ex-wife," she said with a polite smile. "I'm not his ex-wife. We're still married for now," I added helpfully. "The papers you gave me are being processed." The public nature of the confrontation was drawing attention from other diners. My wife's friends were tugging at her arms, trying to get her to leave, but she was locked in a stare-down with the woman who had replaced her. "He's using you," she said to my companion. "This is just revenge." "Actually," my companion replied with surprising steel in her voice, "he's treating me exactly the way every woman deserves to be treated, with respect, attention, and genuine romance. If you couldn't appreciate that, that's your loss, not his fault." That shut her up completely. Later that night, she was waiting for me when I got home. "We need to talk." "Actually, we don't. My lawyer says all communication should go through him now. Please, just 5 minutes." I looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time in months. She was still attractive, still the woman I had fallen in love with years ago. But she was also the woman who had spent years systematically destroying my confidence and mocking my efforts to keep our marriage alive. "You want 5 minutes? Fine. But you get one chance to say whatever you need to say, and then we're done." She took a shaky breath. "I was wrong about everything. The romance, the gestures, all of it. I was stupid, and I took you for granted. Yes, you were. And yes, you did. But we can fix this. We can start over." "No, we can't." "Why not? If you can be romantic with her, you can be romantic with me again." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because she never called me ridiculous for trying. She never mocked me in front of her friends. She never made me feel pathetic for wanting to keep passion alive in our relationship. I said I was sorry. "No, you said you were wrong. There's a difference. Sorry implies regret. Wrong just means you miscalculated. What do you want me to say?" "Nothing. There's nothing you can say that will undo 15 years of telling me that my love was embarrassing. You killed something that can't be brought back to life." The next day, she tried one last desperate move. She showed up at my gym dressed to impress, asking the staff where she could find me. When I came out of the weight room, she was standing there with flowers. "These are for you," she said, holding out the bouquet like a peace offering. I looked at the flowers, then at her, then at the dozen people who were watching this scene unfold. Romance is ridiculous, remember? Especially from 45-year-old people. I walked past her toward the exit. "Keep them. Give them to someone who won't find the gesture embarrassing." The gym fell silent as I left her standing there, holding flowers that represented everything she had taught me not to value. But here's the beautiful irony. I was about to meet someone for lunch who would have treasured those flowers, who would have put them in water and thanked me with genuine appreciation. The difference between my wife and my new companion wasn't age or beauty or anything superficial. The difference was that one of them had spent years teaching me that my love was worthless, while the other was discovering that my love was exactly what she had been looking for all along. 3 days after the gym incident, she hired a private investigator. I know because the guy was terrible at his job, and I spotted him following me twice in 1 week. When I confronted him in the parking lot of the restaurant where I was meeting my companion, he admitted my wife had hired him to gather evidence of adultery. "Tell her she's wasting her money," I said. "I'm not hiding anything. In fact, give her this message. I'll save her the investigation fees and provide all the evidence she needs myself." That evening, I came home to find her sitting at the kitchen table with printed photos the investigator had taken. Pictures of me holding hands with my companion, opening car doors, kissing her goodnight. All the romantic gestures she had called ridiculous when directed at her. "So this is what you call moving on," she said, spreading the photos like playing cards. "This is what I call being appreciated for who I am, instead of mocked for it. I never mocked you." I pulled out my phone and played a recording I had made weeks earlier. Her voice filled the kitchen. "You're 45 years old. Stop trying to be romantic. It's ridiculous." Her face went white. "You recorded me?" "I recorded everything. 15 years of insults, dismissals, and public humiliation. My lawyer has it all documented. That's illegal. Actually, in this state, it's perfectly legal to record conversations in your own home. But thank you for confirming. You knew how destructive your words were." She tried to grab my phone, but I moved it out of reach. "You want to see what else I have? Audio of you telling your friends at the book club that I was pathetically desperate for planning surprise dates. Video of you rolling your eyes when I brought you flowers last Valentine's Day. Screenshots of texts where you complained to your sister about my embarrassing romantic attempts." Each revelation hit her like a physical blow. She had no idea I had been documenting her systematic destruction of our marriage. "You've been spying on me for months." "I've been protecting myself. Learning from the best, actually. You taught me that people will show you exactly who they are if you pay attention." That's when she broke down completely. "Please, I'll change. I'll appreciate everything you do. I'll never complain again." "You'll never complain again?" I laughed, genuinely amused. "You mean you'll pretend to appreciate gestures you fundamentally find ridiculous? You'll fake gratitude for romance you consider pathetic? That's your solution?" "I mean, at this time, no, you don't. You're panicking because you realize that other women value what you threw away, but you can't manufacture genuine appreciation. It's either there or it isn't. And you made it very clear it isn't." She tried a different approach, one that revealed just how desperate she had become. "What about the money, the house? You'll lose half of everything." "Actually, I won't." I pulled out a folder I had been saving for this moment. Funny thing about documenting emotional abuse for months, courts tend to be sympathetic to the victim. Emotional abuse? Are you insane? I never abused you. Really? Let's see. I opened the folder and began reading. October 15th. Called my anniversary dinner embarrassingly juvenile in front of the neighbors. November 3rd. Told your mother I was having a midlife crisis for buying you jewelry. December 22nd. Laughed at me in front of your friends for planning a romantic Christmas evening. With each date and incident, her face grew paler. Those weren't abuse, those were just comments. Systematic patterns of humiliation, mockery, and emotional degradation. That's the legal definition of emotional abuse, and I have months of evidence. You planned this whole thing. I survived this whole thing. There's a difference." She sat in stunned silence for several minutes, probably calculating how badly she had miscalculated. Finally, she tried one last manipulation. "What about her? Does she know you're still married? Does she know you're using her to get revenge?" "She knows everything." I told her the whole story on our second date. You know what she said? She said, "Any woman who would mock a man for being romantic deserves to lose him." She's just saying what you want to hear. No, she's saying what you should have been saying for 15 years. The difference is that she means it. That night, she made one final desperate play. She showed up at my companion's apartment somehow, having gotten the address from the private investigator's files. I know because my companion called me laughing. "Your wife is here. She wants to talk to me about stealing her husband. What did you tell her?" I told her I didn't steal anything. She threw it away, and I picked it up. When I arrived, my wife was standing in the hallway looking defeated. My companion opened the door with a smile that lit up her entire face. Perfect timing. We were just discussing what real appreciation looks like. I told her, my companion continued, that a woman who calls romance ridiculous doesn't deserve romance. And a man who gives it anyway deserves someone who treasures it. My wife looked between us with something approaching hatred. You think you're so much better than me? I think I'm grateful for what I have, instead of resentful about what I receive, my companion replied calmly. That's not better. That's just different. He'll get tired of you too. He'll move on to someone younger. Maybe, but at least I'll never give him a reason to by calling his love ridiculous. The drive home was silent. When we got there, my wife tried one last time. I'm begging you, please don't do this. I'll sign a post-nup giving you everything. I'll go to counseling. I'll change. You'll change because you got caught, not because you understand what you did wrong. That's not change. That's damage control. What do you want from me? Nothing. That's the point. I don't want anything from you anymore because you taught me that wanting things from you was ridiculous. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter. I'm staying at my sister's. The house is yours until the divorce is final. I hope you're happy. I was. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. My documentation strategy had worked perfectly. The court awarded me the house, the majority of our assets, and even ordered her to pay my legal fees. Turns out judges don't appreciate emotional abuse any more than I did. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was the man I had become. The transformation was complete. I had lost 40 pounds, gained muscle, and discovered a confidence I had forgotten existed. More importantly, I had learned the difference between loving someone and being grateful for scraps of basic human decency. My new companion and I had been together for 8 months, and the contrast was staggering. She planned romantic surprises for me. She bought me thoughtful gifts. She bragged to her friends about how well I treated her instead of complaining about my efforts. You make me feel like a queen, she told me one evening after I had arranged a weekend getaway. You make me feel like being romantic isn't ridiculous, I replied. The social circle I had shared with my ex-wife had largely chosen sides, and surprisingly, most chose mine. Apparently, years of watching her mock my efforts hadn't gone unnoticed by our friends. We always thought she was too hard on you, one neighbor admitted, but nobody wanted to get involved in your marriage. The final proof of my complete victory came at a charity gala we both attended. I walked in with my companion, who looked stunning and treated me like I was the most important man in the room. My ex-wife was there alone, having been unable to find a date who met her standards. When she saw us together, the pain in her eyes was immediate and devastating. Here was everything she had thrown away, now belonging to someone else. She looks miserable, my companion whispered. She made her choice, I replied. Now she gets to live with it. During dinner, my ex-wife approached our table. You look happy, she said, trying to sound casual. I am. I hope you know what you gave up. I looked at her for a long moment, then at the woman beside me who was holding my hand and smiling at me with genuine affection. I know exactly what I gave up, I said. Years of being told that my love was embarrassing. Years of having my romantic gestures mocked. Years of trying to water a dead plant and wondering why it wouldn't bloom. That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 15 years married to someone who found my affection ridiculous. What's fair is finding someone who treasures it. She stood there for another moment, probably hoping I'd invite her to sit down or ask about her life. Instead, I turned back to my companion and continued our conversation about the vacation we were planning. As we left that evening, my companion squeezed my hand. Thank you for not settling for someone who didn't appreciate you. Thank you for showing me what appreciation actually looks like. The drive home was peaceful. No arguments, no tension, no walking on eggshells around someone's mood. Just comfortable conversation with someone who enjoyed my company instead of enduring it. That night, as I lay in bed next to someone who had never once called my romantic nature ridiculous, I reflected on the journey. My ex-wife had been right about one thing. I was 45 years old, but she had been wrong about everything else. Age doesn't make romance ridiculous. Age makes it refined, intentional, and valuable. The difference is finding someone who recognizes that value instead of mocking it. I had stopped trying to be romantic for someone who found it embarrassing, and I had found someone who didn't just want my romance. She treasured it.